Have you ever wanted to be a host on an ACA show or be the one calling the shots behind the scenes? Are you in Austin, Texas, or at least Austin adjacent? Well, on Saturday, February 25th, make your way down to the Free Thought Library because we'll be holding open auditions for show hosts and orientations for prospective crew members. For those wanting to be hosts, you'll be able to sit in the studio where our shows are broadcast and we'll put you through your paces to see if you can be one of the new personalities of the ACA. For future crew members, you'll get hands-on experience using the equipment used for broadcast and will help us record the host auditions. If you've ever dreamed of being part of the ACA productions, then this is your chance to show us what you've got. This event is free. For more information and registration, visit tiny.cc/ACA auditions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan, and this is usually a live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. But we talk to people about what people live by. But I'm going to get to why that's going to be a little bit different tonight in just a second. If you would be so kind to let me finish my opening spiel here. This is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And normally, folks, this is also the time when I let you guys know how you can call into the show and talk to us. But we are having a little bit of an issue today. You see, it just so happened that in the Austin area, in exactly the area in which the studio hosts the show and where we have access to all of our computers, that there is an internet outage, and it has been happening for most of the day. And because of that, we are doing the show on a different site, which means we do not have access to our call-in show technology tonight. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a good show. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to want to receive questions from you guys who are typing in the chat live. And hopefully we're going to get some questions for you guys soon, where myself and my guest tonight, Scott Dickie. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Great.
We'll be able to answer some of those questions for you tonight. And maybe if we got time for it, I'm going to pull out a Dan's deep dive from the archive. So we'll get to that today. But tonight, of course, we always have a special guest. This week's no different. It's Scott Dickie. Scott, welcome to a very special episode.
I'm so honored to be included in this extra special episode of Truth Wanted tonight.
It is extra special. Let me tell you, it's not like this all the time. It really isn't. But we are going to work with what we've got. And folks at home, I appreciate you guys being so willing. Two things before we get to our latest segment. We are always asking now, our We Want the Truth segment, which we are responding to a question that we ask here, and we ask you guys to give comments, and we will pick our favorite 3 comments to read. We'll do that in just a second, but I got 2 announcements for you. Well, really almost 3. One, if you saw at the beginning, again, we are doing some auditions in the Austin studio next Saturday for hosting and for crew members. We especially are looking for crew members so that we can help make this show happen. As you guys know, I am a volunteer with the Atheist Community of Austin, and so is every other host and most of the crew, right, are volunteers. We do not get paid for this position, but if you are interested in volunteering and helping out and making these shows happen, we'd love for you to come down, and I will be there next Saturday as well as part of the audition process. I will be coaching and seeing how you guys do in the hosting category there, and there will be some other folks that'll be looking in the crew category. So come on down if you really want to do that. It should be really, really fun. Also, as well, my second announcement that I want to get to, I have a sad but hopeful announcement, if I could say that they're both. So we have a sister show here at Truth Wanted, and it's called Secular Sexuality. I say it's a sister show because we started at the same time. We started the same month in October of 2018. And we have decided, the atheist community of Austin, I should say, not me. I said we, but it's really the ACA has decided that they want to try to retool secular sexuality, and try to re-envision what that show should be. So next week is going to be the last episode of Secular Sexuality, as in its current format, in its current state, and then it's going to be on hiatus for a little bit, as Christy and the other folks running the show are going to figure out what to do with it and how to make it even better. So we don't plan on making it go away entirely. They want to bring it back because secular sexuality serves a very great purpose and serves a lot of minority communities that really enjoy the content that's made there, and we all think that it's wonderful, and we just want to make sure that it's right for its current incarnation can be retooled and be brought to the right audience. So that's what's happening. So I want you guys next week to tune in, as Christy Powell will be hosting the last episode of Secular Sexuality in its current form next Thursday. That's also at 7 p.m. Central Time. Please go show Christy some love. He works very hard on secular sexuality, and he's a really cool dude. So go support him if you can. Anyway, so that's the end of my announcements here, Scott. Now we get to have some fun tonight. But Scott, let's introduce you real quick. Who are you, Scott? Who is this Scott Dickie that I'm speaking?
I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy who likes to hang out. And no, I'm more than just a guy. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm an atheist. I'm a math teacher. I've been teaching for 26 years, something like that. Yeah, a few years ago, I got involved with he's an apologist, a Christian apologist, and he and I just started having a discussion, and we recorded some of it. And so that's kind of how I made my step into all this atheism stuff. I've been an atheist for as long as I can remember. I don't ever remember being religious. I was raised in a religious family, but it never quite clicked with me. And so then as I became an adult, I realized that, actually largely in part due to some of the ACA shows, you didn't turn me into an atheist, but you turned me into a vocal atheist, which I think is a big difference. To stand up there and to say, hey, it's okay if you don't believe in God, it's okay. And see, hey, we're normal people. We have normal jobs. We're nice to each other. We love our families, and we pay our taxes usually. So I made the transition into being a little bit more out there, a little bit more vocal. And then I met up with this, that led to this discussion with a Christian friend of mine. Actually, we became friends. We met. This is a surprise story, but it's true. I promise to you, I met somebody on the internet and we disagreed, but we still got along. Go figure. And so we started having discussions. We recorded some of it. He was a kind of a right-wing Christian who was a minister at the time. He was a Christian minister, and I was not. I definitely lean left politically, and obviously I'm not a religious person. But we really hit it off. We really shared a value that we enjoyed the communication. We wanted to challenge our own beliefs as well as each other's beliefs. And so that blossomed into it was an online friendship, and that eventually turned into in-depth conversations. And that eventually turned into we had it's a podcast, but it was kind of a short-lived kind of a thing. I don't know. We have about 20 episodes or something like that, but it's basically just an extended conversation between myself, a math-oriented atheist liberal, and he was a very conservative Christian, and so we really enjoyed that. It's kind of run its course, although we still have some things left in the chute there that we're still going to be talking about. But I did that for a while, and that kind of helped me to connect up with some ACA people, and somebody said, hey, you want to be on nonprofits? And so over the last year or so, that's kind of where all of my atheist juju's been focused, is into the nonprofits. But yeah, and so that brought me here. So whatever path brought me to my happy location right now, it couldn't have been too bad.
Yeah. And now you're here on Truth Wanted,
Right.
and I like the term atheist juju. That's one I got to put in my repertoire. And that
For sure.
and I definitely want to ask you more about some of your experiences, and we'll get to talk to the audience as well. And I forgot to mention this last week. We have super chats now, folks. So if you want to, type your questions in the chat, we're going to get to some of those in just a bit. But also, if you really want me to read some of those super chats, and if you want to be the very first person to donate on Truth Wanted Super Chat, you can do that now. It's something that we had turned off for a long time, and the decisions made recently that we want to turn it on because it seems like it's something you guys would like. So super chats will be on, and folks are going to be helping me with getting that information as well. So if I don't read it right away, that's because we're just getting started with that stuff. And today, again, is a technically very different show. I was having some issues today too. My AC completely broke. It actually just got fixed right before the show got started here. And just a lot of stuff's just falling apart today, Scott. But you know what's not falling apart?
What is not falling apart today?
What's not falling apart is the next segment that I'm going to be starting here, which is We Want the Truth. Because every single week, folks, we're going to be asking you, the audience, a question that we want answered in the comments section of the video. So we're going to get to that today. Last week's question was the following: what is the craziest pseudoscientific claim you've ever heard? Okay, so that is what we're looking at. So before we get to that, Scott, what's the craziest pseudoscientific claim you've ever heard?
The craziest? Well, first of all, I'd hesitate to use the word crazy. If I was gonna say that, I'd want to make sure that we were talking about the beliefs, the pseudoscientific belief, and not the person. I'd want to take care to separate that.
Yes, very good that you separate that. And that's something that I need to, I try to be very conscious of my language, because when you're live and people are hearing it, it's great. But that's something that I mess up on probably more than anything else, which is using that word crazy as in language that can be derogatory towards people who struggle with mental health issues, and that is something I've tried to eschew from my vocabulary. So I'm glad you brought that up. But anyway, Scott, what is the wildest? What's the wildest?
I thought about this, and well, first of all, I do have internet access, and so that opens me up to a whole world of pseudoscientific beliefs, and I know people that have thought they had ESP, that really were into their star charts, or believed in dowsing, and things like that, the typical run of the mill. But I was trying to think of an interesting pseudoscientific belief, and this is something I experienced when I even kind of participated in it when I lived in West Africa briefly. I was in the Peace Corps in the 90s, and so I got to experience West African culture, and over there they had this I don't know if it was a tradition, but this thing where they would wear these talismans, and they were called I think they were called gree or juju or something like that. I think juju was kind of the generic term for like the magical power, but they're like little leather talismans, and usually inside they would write out prayers to their ancestors or things like that. And so special paper with special notes would go into these, and they believed that that these jujus would not only bring good luck and would ward off disease, and malaria, of course, is an issue over there, but also that it was bulletproof. It was bulletproof. And so I couldn't find it for the life of me. I have a juju somewhere in this house. I was hoping to bring it out to show, but it's basically just a little necklace with a little thing. Every once in a while, if you see like the other night, I was watching a show where they were showing some Senegalese wrestlers, and one of them had jujus like wrapped all around his legs and all around his arms and stuff. And so So that was definitely an interest, and it wasn't there was of course the spectrum of belief as far as whether or not these jujus worked or what they did. I was obviously on the skeptical end, but there were people that would just wear them just because it was something you did. But then there were people that really they'd like freak out if you left the house without wearing your juju, and so I would have to say that would be definitely up there in the pantheon of pseudoscience that I've seen.
That is really interesting because I have read that I think in some Greek traditions, talismans were often used to kind of ward off spirits. I think in the Greek traditions, but I have seen apparently there are some ancient Christian traditions that also had Christian talismans that were supposed to be able to ward off evil spirits, I guess. So a lot of talismans.
How could they all be wrong? How could all of those people be wrong about that?
Now, if I get a talisman from every world religion and I put it on my house or on my body, I think that means I'm good, right? Because like you got to be safe, and then also like a vaccine too, because that's like a science talisman in a way.
Just covering all of the bases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
hang the garlic over your door, put the lamb's blood
up,
and just go the whole 9 yards.
Whole 9 yards, and then you should be safe. I think that's the way to do it. But we should read our comments from last week. So we're gonna get to our first one here. Number 3 for our picks for last week was from Kelly Pro Teacher. They said craziest I've heard is the SDA trope about the investigative judgment. LOL. Now, you said that now SDA, that is referring to the Seventh-day Adventists.
Right. Okay.
Scott, have you heard of investigative judgment?
I have not, and now I'm very worried that I don't know.
So investigative judgment. First of all, I need to do a deep dive on the Seventh-day Adventists sometimes because a lot of people don't know. David Koresh was an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists, which is amazing. I don't know what it is about Seventh-day Adventists. They have a lot of offshoots. Very
offshoots of offshoots.
Yeah, interesting group. But basically, this idea of investigative judgment is that people have been, like, their souls, right, have kind of been living in sort of purgatory, not really purgatory, but have been sleeping for the day of judgment, right, which, is a Christian belief. But the judgment stuff started happening in 1844. So in 1844, like, I guess the judgment stuff started going, and they're investigating the cases of everybody, and will continue to investigate the cases of people that are living today. So it's a really interesting idea.
Is that kind of like what was that movie with Meryl Streep in it where she died and she went up and she had to review scenes from her life? Is that what it's like?
I think I have to look more into it because I don't know what it's like. But yeah, like, I mean, it's not uncommon for Christians to have an idea of, like, being judged once you get to heaven and stuff, right? Like, that's a pretty common thing. It's just like this started happening at a very specific year. And it started, like, they didn't get to Adam and Eve until 1844, which is just like interesting.
They had a huge backlog.
They got a big backlog. I wouldn't want to be a part of that project. Right. It sounds like a lot of work.
I'm not. What's the investigative part of it, though? I'm not. What is that?
The investigative part is, like, they have to start looking. That's when they start doing all the judgment and stuff. So they gotta, remove all the names from the book of life and stuff.
So is it a competitive kind of situation where you have a defense and a prosecutor?
Man, like I said, I got to look more into that. I don't know enough about it, but it's a thing that I've heard about before.
All right.
But yeah,
investigative judgment.
Yeah, investigative judgment. Look it up. Next comment that we're going to get to is from Rick Reason. This is our number 2 pick. Rather than the biggest pseudoscience claim, the most annoying one for me was this range of products that my parents were convinced of. Magnets in special bracelets, or even in dog collars, that was claimed to reduce muscular pain and to increase calmness in the brain. Despite my insisting that this is not how magnets work, my parents still bought into it, to the point where my father's knee became so bad from delaying surgery that an extreme persistent pain remains to this day. Fucking magnets. How do they work? Right.
I think that's a fine example of where's the harm right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't be more obvious. You delayed treatment. You went with the magnets, and then ended up things were getting worse. I mean, that's the perfect example of what the problem with pseudoscience is.
If I grew up in like a caveman society, like 100,000 years ago or whatever, I don't know, Ice Age, that's not that long ago, but whatever. And you came up to me, Scott, and you showed me magnets, like I would just immediately convert to whatever you were telling me, right? Because like magnets are just cool, like they're like the closest thing we have to real magic.
Right. It's like anti-gravity.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So like I could believe that they have magic powers and could heal people, but I mean not now.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm also not a part of the insane clown posse, right? So I have kind of an understanding of how magnets work, but
right.
It's still kind of weird and not intuitive. So that was our number 2 comment. We're now going to get to our number 1 comment this week, and again a return from the infamous Dirk Brothel, and he writes, the idea that wearing a rock around your neck can heal you. Yes, like we talked about this with Kelly Laughlin, who is a geologist and has been on the show. Rock healing, I think in today, like in 2023, rock healing is so bizarre to me. It's just the most bizarre thing. I don't know. What do you think?
You would think they would at least have some kind of effectiveness in order for it to last so long. I mean, how many times do people have to put rocks around their necks and not heal before they realize, hey, maybe this doesn't do anything?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not so much the belief, it's the persistence that I think is really baffling to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, we did kind of talk about this a little bit about, for folks who don't have the greatest access to healthcare, like it's a cheap alternative to just go to the store and get rocks and hope for the best, rather than seek the care that you need sometimes for things. And when you're desperate for medical care for things where traditional medicine may not be able to help you, like certain kinds of cancer, for instance, like I can see why people would do that. But if you're just like me, just the regular dude, and it's just like, yeah, I wear this agate on my neck because I think it's going to give me, I don't know, better erections in bed or something, like that's okay. Like,
well, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, right. I don't know, but
what have you got to lose, right? It's not going to make things worse.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it will though. I mean, maybe it could be like a radioactive rock or something.
Okay, it could. maybe you just don't have enough faith.
Yeah, maybe I don't have enough faith. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I got to believe in the power of the rocks.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, interesting comments from you guys. Thanks so much for commenting, and we're going to ask for for you guys to answer this week's question in the comment section below the video. So this week's this week's question is going to be, in one sentence, what is your favorite questionable life hack? So comment on the video with the hashtag WWTT, and your comment might be read on next week's episode, and we'll go over our favorite 3 next week. So thanks, crew, for giving me those comments, and thank you guys for giving your answers. I like this segment. I think it's very fun. And the more that we do it, I want you guys to have some creative answers to this one, because it's certainly an interesting question. So we're going to
challenge has been given. The gauntlet has been thrown.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to do things a bit differently here. And while I'm talking about it, I just want to quickly thank the patron of the week. So of course we always want to thank everybody who donates on the Patreon. You guys rock. And eventually I'm going to be giving some shout outs to some folks in a second. We've got at least one super chat here, and I'll get to that in a bit too. But of course I want to thank everybody who donates on the Patreon. Again, I'm a volunteer here at the ACA, and so is everybody else who hosts this show. But this helps show the folks at the ACA who make all the decisions and say, hey, Truth Wanted is a show that's worth supporting and worth continuing to make stuff happen. So again, thank you to everybody that donates. But this week's patron of the week is going to be Eric Ray. Eric Ray, thank you so much for being a patron. And again, thank you to everybody that donates. That's patreon.com/truthwanted. And we love to see it, folks. We love to see it. So you guys rock. Now, with that, Scott, let's talk a little bit more about you before we get to this week's question. But
Sure.
actually, you know what? I'm gonna get to this first. Let's answer our first super chat. This is our very first super chat for Truth Wanted, and it's a real quick one. So we'll get to it. It's actually Kelly Laughlin. Kelly Laughlin has decided to donate to be the first. Of course he would. He has given $5, and Kelly wants to know, will the host join us in Discord for an after show? What do you think, Scott? You down for an after show?
Yeah, I'm game.
Okay, cool. So I'm game too. So we'll get to that after the show. Again, this show's length might be a bit different. I don't know what things are going to be. We're Truth Wanted. We're zigging and zagging
by the seat of our pants here.
Flying by the seat of our pants, and we're making the dream work. Okay, so bear with us as we do an unorthodox episode of the show tonight. And now let's get to our interview segment here. I want to get back to you, Scott.
Okay,
Scott, you are interesting because a lot of my guests were formerly Christian. I'd say like the majority of the atheist activist folks that I have on here were formerly Christian. You don't identify or never identified as a Christian.
Well, I mean, looking back, I think when I was a kid, if somebody had asked me, what's your religion, I think I would have told them I was a Christian. But like I said, I don't remember ever actually believing there was a God. I was raised in a Christian family. My parents are Christian. My siblings and their families are all Christians, and all of my grandparents and when I had grandparents, but all of my extended family are all Christian. And so I'm kind of standing out. And so I did the whole thing. I did all the Christmas plays, and I did all of the vacation Bible school, and I did, the Sunday school and all that stuff. There came a point where I realized that, okay, I'm not like this. I'm not like these people here. There's a difference. And I remember distinctly, it was during a Sunday school session, and they were talking about Noah's Ark. And some of the other kids, I think I might have been about maybe 5th grade or 6th grade, and some of the other kids were asking, well, how did they fit all of the animals in there, or what did they do with their waste, or how did they keep, typical kids Noah's Ark questions. And I remember thinking, okay, these kids just don't get it. The story is not literal. Obviously, it's meant to be, analogous, or it's meant to be like a, just an allegory or some kind of story representing, to make a point. But then the Sunday school teachers were like, those are good questions. And I think, and they started taking the questions seriously. And so at that moment, I realized I'm not like this. There's something different here. And I think that kind of started I was still a kid, and my parents weren't, super harsh. You're going to Sunday school or else, but, they would still take me to church. So I think that kind of started my path away from religion at that point. But like you said, I never really called myself a Christian.
Yeah.
I don't think I believed in God, but I do. There are many people in my life that are religious and are Christians that mean the world to me. And so it's important. And so that's an important aspect of the lives of people that are close to me. And so naturally it would have to be important to me. And we've all made it work. It's, you hear horror stories of families being torn asunder over this kind of thing. And it hasn't been all smooth sailing, but for the most part, my family cares about me, and they want me to still be part of the family. And so even though there's, especially at certain times, maybe at certain holidays, there might be like some awkwardness or some distance there. But for the most part, we try to make it work. And I'm very grateful and lucky to have family members that are willing to, they're willing to set aside some aspects of their religious beliefs in order to maintain a relationship with their son. And so I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah. Do you think, though, like, on that note, I was going to ask you something else, but on that note, like, what do you think it means when somebody has to set aside their beliefs just to even have like a conversation with you. You know what I mean? Like, and I know like
Yeah.
your relationship's deeper than that, but it's
Mhm.
like, do you feel that there's some tension there, even in doing an act like that? Like they have to tolerate you, and even though that violates some sort of principle that they might hold?
Well, yes and no. I mean,
Mm,
it's cognitive dissonance. I mean, and
yeah.
it's something that we all go through. It's not just something that's strictly for religious people. It's, you know, if you have strong beliefs in one direction, you're gonna come up against a wall on
Mm,
occasion, or there's gonna be obstacles there. And so I think, um, it's a question of balancing the things that are important to you, and unfortunately in some cases compartmentalizing some things that that you don't care to deal with at the moment, or that are that are causing disharmony,
mm,
and so as human beings, we naturally are social creatures, and so we want to get along with each other. We want,
mhm,
and we value people, and so it's hard to face those kind of things, and we react different ways. Sometimes we
mhm,
might get angry, and that would lead to kicking our children out of the house or something, or sometimes we'll be frightened or stressed out or anxious,
mhm.
or sometimes we'll just ignore it, and sometimes, and just move on and just continue on as if everything was just okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean,
Mhm,
we have to deal with we all have these biases and foibles in our, our human ape brains, and so, we got to deal with what we got, and try to make it work somehow. And sometimes
mhm.
that involves having those kind of clashes. And
Yeah.
I can't say how my parents, I can't say with certainty. Obviously, I've known them for quite for quite a while,
Mhm,
but I can't say for certainty how they're dealing with it internally. But you know, they're kind to me. They love me. They're inclusive. They don't force prayers on me and things like that. And so that's acceptable to me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I kind of feel this way too, where sometimes in order to make the best relationships with people work, like that the best relationships you're gonna have with people is that you do compromise sometimes, right?
Exactly.
And like
Definitely.
that's very tricky though, because what does that mean? Like, on what things should we compromise on? Like, for example, if somebody's going to ask me to pray over a meal, I've decided at this point, like I used to be like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. You just say some nice words, but I don't accept that anymore. Actually, I've kind of made that line because it's like, look, I'm not going to pretend that this is something I'm going to do. And I think it's honestly disrespectful to you if I pretend that. So like that's something I don't do anymore, for example.
Something that doesn't come up very often is that
Mm,
if you want me to go along with your religion, and I would be pretending, to me that seems insulting to them.
yeah, yeah,
To just fake it and wing it. And so,
right.
yeah, so I agree, but I think that, you know, the whole idea
Hmm.
of compromise and needing to find some kind of happy ground or happy middle, that's not something that's
Hmm.
unique to religious families with
Sure.
non-religious members. I mean, that's any you can walk into anybody in the street, that's one of the number one things that businesses these days are looking for: people with people skills that can get along with each other, that can compromise, that can come to agreements, especially in situations where they feel strongly one way or the other. And so yeah, so I totally agree with what you were saying about that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to also put a pin in this too, though, is that like the ability to compromise is a privileged position to be able to do. And what I mean by that is like I'm able to do that now with my family on things because I'm an adult. Like when I was first going through this, yes, I was an adult, but I was a very young adult, and I relied on them for a lot of things, including living with them for part of my time in my deconstruction. So it was like I felt like I had to compromise. I didn't have a
Hmm.
choice, right? I feel like if you're going to compromise on something, you should have a choice. You shouldn't feel like it's something that I mean, I guess that's what some people feel like, right? They feel like they want to make other people happy, so they want to do it. But ultimately, you should have that decision, right? even if it makes
Exactly.
things awkward, I think you should have the decision. And I didn't have a full capacity. I felt like there were a lot of pressures that led me to do it. And another thing too, right? I am a straight cis white guy trademark, right? You know, it's the whole thing. It's like, look, there's a lot of other experiences that I've never had with folks, and my family isn't even super fundamentalist, right? Where like my relationship with them isn't going to completely compromise other parts of my values. Whereas other people may have family members where that is going to compromise their values and the people that they love. Now, I have very strong disagreements on some positions that my family holds on things. But like I'm able to work through it for me. I don't think that's something everybody has to do or should do. But I kind of approach it with the perspective that, look, the majority of this country is still Christian, and a big chunk of the world is. I'm going to have to find a way to live my life the best way possible and get along with the folks that I can. There's some folks I'm not going to be able to, and that's okay. But
Right.
you know, we're still fighting an uphill battle in my eyes. And if I can do that, I can. But I don't think that's everyone's prerogative. You know, I used to think, oh, everybody should just be civil, but no, you shouldn't accept like injustices as you see it. Like if my parents say something homophobic, for example, I'm going to call them out. I'm going to say, hey, I don't tolerate that.
Right.
But you know, also I'll still go to Thanksgiving though, because like, you know, like they're not saying it all the time, even if they're thinking in their heads. I don't know. It's a weird thing you got to do, you know?
So
Anyway.
when you go to your family for Thanksgiving and you sit down, I'm assuming that they still have a prayer.
They do. And they've asked
so what
me
are the expectations for you?
They've asked me to pray. I've told them not to do it. Also, they've asked me to come to church with them on Thanksgiving, on Christmas service. They actually asked me to do it this last Christmas. Long story short, I ended up not even being able to see them during Christmas weekend, so I didn't go. But I don't know. I was getting ready to tell them, no, I'm not going to do this. But a part of me wanted to go only because it's been a while since I've been to church, and I kind of want to like get a feel for what the Baptist church life is like back in Waco, Texas, right? But
well, plus you know. I think if you show that you're willing to compromise and to take into account their desires, then in theory, at least, you should be able to expect.
Well, you know, Scott, that's the problem, though, isn't that? Yeah, I mean, like, that's the nice thing to do. I don't think that will happen, though. You know, for, like, you know, not to get into personal business with my family, right? But like, you know, my family broadly does not support my activism activities, and I don't think they wanted to in any capacity whatsoever. And that sucks for me, to be honest. You know, because it's like, hey, this is something I do.
Yeah.
In some ways I'm proud of, right? And it's like I want to be able to share that with my family, but I can't because they don't like it. And that's, you know what, that is something I'm willing to do because like this is worth it. This is worth ostracization for my family, because I think what we're doing here is important. Not just like me, obviously, what everyone does for the Truth Wanted project and everything else that's going on with the
I agree 100%. 100%. My family's kind of the same way. They just kind of don't bring it up.
Yeah.
Although my mom did tell me she listens to all my stuff. So hi, Mom, if you're listening there. So she at least, you know, still wants to see what I'm doing. And but yeah, if it doesn't really come up in conversation around the family, you know, Scott, what's Scott doing these days?
Right. It's a hard thing. I don't know. Like when people ask me how to handle their own family situations, like what they should do. I mean, I always say, first of all, you got to establish your own boundaries. You got to figure out what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. You don't have to cut everybody off if you can tolerate it. Like, but like that is such a tricky thing, because what can you tolerate? What is acceptable and what's not? I don't know if there's like a perfect answer that's gonna be a one size fit all.
For sure.
And one thing too is that I keep my family in my life, one, because I do love them, even though I think they're wrong about many things, but also I could still change their minds about things. And if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be me, damn it.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Unless you have a secret atheist cousin or something.
Yeah. But, you know, anyway, that's my thoughts. I've been talking about a lot about me though, Scott. I want to know a bit more about you. So like you jumped into the activism thing whole hog. You talked a little bit about your upbringing and your beliefs. Like, was there like a transition period for you at all in deconstruction, or
You
were you
mean in
just
my
kind of
beliefs,
yeah,
or?
were you just kind of from the get-go like, okay, this isn't really working, you know?
Yeah, I think my arc is not all that uncommon. I did go
Mhm.
through. I've been married for 22 years now, and when I first got married, my wife was a Christian. Her family is all Christian as well. In fact, her uncle actually performed our um, our wedding ceremony. But and I just lost track. Oh yeah, so my transition from where I was at before to where I am now. Yeah, I did go through a time. I remember I'm an overthinker. I'm a textbook overthinker, and so if there's something that I think needs addressing, I'm gonna have 1,000 different conversations in my head while I'm trying to get to sleep and stuff like that. But I did go through a time when I was like, okay, is there a way that I can? Is there something that I'm missing here? Is there some kind of connection? I went through the, well, what if God is really just nature kind of thing? Could that be seen as a representation of this thing? I mean, I knew that my family and obviously the people from Sunday school were taking things quite literally, and that was something that did not jibe with me, and that's something that I couldn't reconcile in my brain. But I think we all, it's still part of that desire to be part of the family, and we all grow up wanting the approval of our family and our parents and that kind of thing. And so I wouldn't say struggle, but I would say there was a transition time, and I think even when I got married to my wife, um I think I told her I wasn't identifying as an atheist at that point, even though I probably knew that I was, but I wasn't saying it. That's a big step. That's a big step too, is when the words come out of your mouth, especially to other people, right? When you say I'm an atheist, and that can be a big thing. But I think there was a time when I was trying to reconcile things. I obviously was not successful in doing
Yeah.
that, um, but that's okay. And then there was a time when I didn't say anything to my family. There was
Mhm.
I would talk about it with my wife, and she was kind of one of the, well, I go to church and I feel good, so
Yeah.
that's the kind of Christian I am.
And that's extra tough, Scott. I was kind of dating a Christian girl. I remember when I was going really hard with my deconstruction, and like I kind of came to this conclusion, like, oh man, this isn't gonna work. And I was just dating somebody. I wasn't ever married to somebody. I didn't
Right,
have that long-term commitments. And shout outs to people who have tried to make that work, and also shout outs to people who have decided that it's best if it doesn't work. Like that's got to be
right,
super difficult. And
yeah.
to make that decision is really hard. But I for myself, I'm glad I figured it out at the time I did, so that I could be true to myself, so that if I do decide to, engage in that long-term commitment with someone, that they know what they're getting themselves
Right,
into.
right, right. Yeah.
Especially with me, because like my face is on the internet, so they kind of have to deal with that.
But
But
yeah,
yeah.
I think it is important to have that kind of sense of integrity with yourself. It can be, and my heart goes out. We hear these callers calling in, and they have to live a lie
Yeah.
essentially, and
Yeah.
and it's just one of the, and you were saying before about privilege, right? This
Yeah.
this this ability to compromise, and the fact that I had a choice
Mm.
on how to approach the problem,
Yeah.
and how to
Yeah.
approach this issue is, one of the many
Yeah.
ways that I've had a privileged life. And so I think it's important that's one of the reasons that I decided, thank you to some of the ACA shows, that I should be saying something. It should be okay to have these discussions. And so if I'm going to take a little bit of shit or take a hit, for doing this kind of thing, that's okay. I'm in a position where I can deal with it. And if it makes things even a little bit better for somebody else, then that's definitely worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Scott. Well, I'm glad you're here with me, and I'm glad we get to have some discussions. And we're going to be having
Definitely.
some more discussions by answering some of your guys' questions for tonight. But before we get to your questions, we're going to go ahead and play our mid-roll. Here it comes.
The Fet Lives, where you found me, just doing my thing, and the the Pet Palace.
I like the idea that the audience thinks that I just like sort of troll FetLife, just trying to find somebody to come and talk to me about something sexy and funny and weird.
Yeah.
He knows things through a feeling, and you know through things from a feeling. And it seems like with that very same method, we can arrive at almost polar opposite beliefs. Do you think that way of knowing your belief is a reliable way to know that belief?
If you read, there are passages and letters written by Queen Victoria herself where she, let's just say, gleefully comments upon the manhood of her husband Albert. That's why there's a ring named after him. It's how he used to control the beast.
Are you inside my brain?
I can tell you what Satan your mind into believing.
Hold on. I find it kind of offensive to use inflammatory language like that to describe somebody that does not believe in your God.
Whether it's in the Bible or not, for treating a human being as a means and not an end in themselves. And just because some Bronze Age semi-savages may have justified it, I just don't think that counts.
And we are back to the show, and I am also going to give a few other announcements here before we get to the questions. First of all, if you'd like to support the show, as I mentioned, you can donate on Patreon, tiny.cc/Patreon TW. A couple different tiers there, and you get your name shouted out on the show. And also, we have the super chats. So we are definitely going to be reading more super chats tonight if they come in. I don't see that we have any more just yet. But that is just another way that you can support us. And the fun thing is we get to read them as long as they are not like racial slurs or something, or like jeopardize our ability to continue to broadcast as a nonprofit entity. So, just normal stuff, please. And be happy to read some of those super chats from you guys. One other way you can support the show is by becoming a member. You get emojis in the chat. If you do that, your name gets highlighted in the chat. And you can do that all for as little as 99 cents per month. So something to consider. And lastly here, if you shop on Amazon, you can support the ACA at no additional cost to you. You just have to visit tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA and do it soon, because this ends on February 20th. I finally have a date for that. I didn't have a date for it for a while, and I had it in the notes. It was like, we got to get a date for this. And I didn't have a date for it, but it's February 20th. So thank you to everyone who has selected the Atheist Community of Austin as their designated charity, because with your help through this, we've been able to raise over $10,000. So it is awesome. And isn't it great? And it's like you're already going to get the thing that you want from Amazon, and it's not going to be an extra cost for you. So just do it. If you're going to buy stuff in the next few days on Amazon, and you're going to feel weird about it because it's Amazon, you don't really support their policies, but they kind of have a monopoly on the online marketplace. Well, you can still at least designate the Atheist Community of Austin as your charity. So go ahead and do that if you want. And now, Scott, it is time for us to get to some questions. All
right. That's the whole point, right? That's the message here.
Point for tonight, at least. I've had wonderful folks behind the scenes get me a lot of your questions from the chat. So thank you so much. Some really good ones here. I've been kind of looking here, and I still am not entirely sure where to start. There's some good ones. Let's start with OneEyedHeathen, who asked how much of the vilification of skeptics and intellectuals in general is an intentional, coordinated effort by religious leaders. How'd the stereotypes get just that bad? I'll start with this one. I mean, think about this, Scott. When you went to church, was there ever an atheist or non-believer kind of stereotype? Because there definitely was in my church circles.
I mean, we went to a fairly relaxed, we went to a Methodist church in Minnesota. And so it's about as milquetoast as you can get there. And so it was fairly bland. And I don't remember talking about atheists. I don't think that was even something that was on my radar at the time. So again, maybe I was fortunate in that respect. But yeah, it just, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand I mean, I can see how, they want to promote their God, right? They feel like, or at least, well, many people that do this kind of thing are doing it to promote something that they think is the most wonderful thing that they can imagine. And so they feel motivated in that respect, but it can be, it's hard to say. I mean, because othering somebody has a very instant and drastic effect. When you're standing and talking to somebody and they say to you, you are not like me. And it can be very alienating, and it can put in, well, I mean, the whole point is to put a gap there, right? We want the goats on one side, we want the sheep on the other side, and never the twain shall meet, right? That's kind of the whole point there is you want to be on the good side. And so you don't want to be mixing with the people on the other side. Whether it's, I have to believe that there's a fair number of religious leaders that are doing it intentionally, that do understand what they're doing, and that are intentionally fanning the flames of, I mean, as human beings that evolved in a dangerous, wild world, we have natural inclinations to want the people that we know, keep them safe. They all share our DNA. We want them to be the successful ones. It's the people that it's the people that we don't see on a daily basis. It's them there that were a threat to our livelihood and our lives. And so as our societies have developed, and we're no longer in these small clans out on the plains and in the jungles and that kind of thing, we don't have those kind of risks. And so it's like it's like our earlobes, right? It's just a vestigial structure of part of our development. And so I have to think that there are people that are intentionally taking advantage of that psychological blip in our brains. But I also have to believe that there are many people who don't relish having to do that kind of thing. I mean, that maybe their religious leaders are saying, you can't talk to the Democrats because they're pro-choice, or you can't do this, that, or you have to stay away from atheists because they're of the devil. I mean, there's got to be, like anything else, there's going to be a spectrum there.
It is information control on some level. I definitely wasn't encouraged to talk to atheists or talk to non-believers unless the intention was for conversion purposes, right? Like if you're evangelizing, that's when it's acceptable. Otherwise, never really was an encouragement to say, hey, sit down and listen to what this person thinks about it and really evaluate it with your own worldview. That's not what it was, because you already have the truth, right?
Right.
You have the truth and you got to give it to other people. Now, there are some people that have a great documentary that I think every atheist should watch, is one called Marjo, Marjoe, and it's by about Marjo Gortner, I think is his name, who is this evangelist guy who goes around and does the whole pretending to heal people stuff and getting money. And he talks about it. This documentary flips between him doing these rituals and doing this stuff in these churches, and him just like sitting on a bed with his pile of money and saying like, yeah, this is just all fake, and I just do this. And I think he talked about it because he feels guilty about it on some level. And he wanted to kind of record his thoughts. But it's like, okay, this guy at least is admitting and is open to it. How many other people are relying on this stereotype of non-believers in order to get what they want? And I imagine there's got to be other people that are like him doing that. Now, obviously, that's not every pastor in every church, but like there is an in-group bias, right? Again,
right, for sure.
We love it when Christians call into our shows. We want to talk to them. Like we're down for it. I have not been invited on any Christian podcasts. Okay, like maybe one or two shows, but like I don't know. They don't want to talk to me. I gotta put myself out there. So
Haven't you also had Christians on Truth Wanted?
I have.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in maybe trying that again in the future. That had some
good for
interesting
you.
results.
Good for you.
But
if you're looking for a former Christian pastor, I got a good guy. So
I want to talk to
you.
I think I don't know. My goal this year is I want to try to be on more of those meet myself on other Christian platforms, because like I want them to know what I think. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
I've known what the Christians have thought for a while. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they know what I think, but
yeah, I think that's definitely a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to speak at a church, and that was one of my favorite experiences. That that this atheism thing, they wanted me to come in, and they were having this short sequence of science versus faith kind of discussions. And so they had these 5 topics, and they would have one person come and talk about the science side, and one person come in and talk about the faith side. And it was really, and it was very welcoming. And I was really happy to have that opportunity. And so it's those opportunities don't come up that often. Like you were saying, you'd love to be on more shows. You want to. It's all
Christians.
About
if you're watching Christians and some Christian podcasts or whatever, like I am surprisingly open. Okay, like I'm down. I'll talk to whoever. But anyway,
all right.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I think is one good activism in some ways, but also just like. I don't know. I'm just personally curious about other people,
Right.
and that's another thing. A lot of Christianity doesn't encourage personal curiosity. It really doesn't. It kind of just wants you to stick to your truth and stick to your values. But what you were just talking about, Scott, I think is a great segue to this next question, which I want to get to, which is
all right.
Saint Marijuana, which is a great name.
Okay.
Who asks, can religion and science come along? Okay. Tricky question, Scott. I have some ideas.
All right. What
do
you got?
I thought I had this idea. Stephen Jay Gould, I think, is the one that coined this phrase of basically what's called the non-overlapping magisteria, which is this idea that religion and science are are like 2 different inquiries, 2 different domains, categories of inquiries that we could kind of look into the world. And that's how we can keep that separate. I think this is kind of a centrist answer, and I don't agree with it anymore. And this is what I thought when I was a Christian, because this is a way to preserve the beliefs that you have that are bullshit, right? It's a way to prevent your wackier ideas from being inquired upon, because
separate. If you say no, religion has no place in the church.
Because look, if you believe that a man rose from the dead, if you believe that a man could change water into wine, or could walk on water, or could multiply bread, or could heal a blind person, that is all within the scope of inquiry, right? That is all within the scope of observation. That does not, you don't just get to say, oh, we get a pass because a bunch of people think it's true. Like, that's not how that works, right? We have to be able to talk about it. I don't care that Christianity has a special place in some people's hearts. It had a special place in my heart, but that doesn't mean that I just get to pass this off and say, well, this is a separate inquiry. This is something else. That these are testable, observable ideas that we can look at. And that's what's most interesting to me when talking about, the overlap between the two. Now, obviously you can have some philosophical abstract notions that may not be scientifically or empirically based, and that's another thing. But I just mean, I strictly mean when religion makes these supernatural claims, which Christianity at its basis is a very supernatural claim, like that is open to inquiry, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think that's part of what we were talking about before with the cognitive dissonance, right? It's the compartmentalization, right? Obviously, there are many people that are deeply, deeply religious that are also very scientific and very, maybe they're a doctor or a scientist of some sort, or something along those lines. And so those 2 ideas can exist in one human being. But we know that we're really good at that. We're really good at protecting our cherished beliefs from invasion and from encroachment of other ideas. And so it's a natural thing to do. But I agree. I think that Yeah, I think that they can exist together. They can be together, but really only if we mislabel some things. If we talk about religion and we pretend it's science, or we talk about science and we pretend it's religion. I think and I'm not an expert in this area, so I'm definitely open to hearing other experiences. But I think that, because science is based off of the scientific method and off of reason and logic, and religion, when you boil down to it, yes, and I know Jamie, my former podcast partner, is rolling in his chair right now, saying, no, we can have justified belief. I remain unconvinced that that's not necessarily that that's possible, but that's happened, in anything that I've seen. And so, like I was saying, they can really only come together if there's a fuzziness, an ambiguity, and I think that you can tell that in the way people talk about things, the way a religious person will talk about things, or even a scientific person will talk about things. The way that they talk about it, you can kind of tell that they're maybe shying away from a direct confrontation. I think that fundamentally science and religion are opposed, but there are other situations where things that are opposed can coexist and can even be together in harmony. And I'm not saying that I think that science and religion can be harmonious, but maybe they can. I'm open to the idea.
Scott, the pushback that we usually get on this, and by the way, we're already at an hour into the show, so we might just go all the way here. I don't know. It seems like we might be able to. Crew can let me know if that's okay, but I'm just going to keep on trucking. But people will point out, well, look, the Catholic Church historically has been an institution that has supported scientific inquiry. A lot of people point to in the history of Islam, Baghdad was the center of scientific inquiry for many years, and a lot of knowledge that was not known to other parts of the world was first made by Islamic scholars. And that is absolutely true. And I think that they interpreted their religion in a way that meant, well, we have to understand how God's creation worked. And there is a something there that I can respect in a way. But I have to go back to this idea, well, okay, if there is a God, and there are angels, demons, spiritual forces at work in the world, are these also not up to skepticism and also up to scrutiny? Because
right, exactly.
How do we know? How do we know this isn't just now? Some will say, well, all forces in the world are of God, so technically it's all supernatural in a way. I've heard that argument too, which, okay, sure. But again, even if that's the case, we can still inquire about the natural world, right? We can still make predictions, still have understandings of it. And I think that means we can point out the weird spiritual stuff if it does happen, right? Like we should be able to examine that. And so far, I haven't seen a real miracle yet.
Right.
I just haven't. And there's a lot of videos of a lot of things. I haven't seen it happen. So.
Well, I'll say to you now, I haven't seen that either. But you would think that somebody with strongly held beliefs that believes that science will back them up. I mean, if religion is true, and there are gods and or supernatural beings, then that's real.
Yeah.
If it's true, then those things are real and they're really part of the world and they're really part of the metaphysics of the, of our universe. And so you would think that would be open for inquiry, right?
Yeah, it should be.
The truth has nothing to fear from a bright light, right? I mean, from investigation. And so at least in theory, you would think it would be welcomed. And the fact that it's not, then either
sometimes it is. I'll give Christians credit where it's due. Sometimes they're like, no, these miracles are real. Check this out. Here's a book about them. It's like, okay, that's true. It does happen. But I mean, like growing up, this idea of questioning, well, what if we're wrong about what we experience, right? Maybe this wasn't the Holy Spirit. Maybe this was something else. That I don't think ever happened. I don't know if that ever happened for me. I mean, maybe once or twice, but like, it's usually pretty taboo in a lot of Christian circles. But I think,
how did you respond how did you react when you were in that mindset and you were you know, I'm sure there was many times when, you know, the doubts were creeping in. And so how did you address that? How did, if you were thinking science, religion clashing, what was a reaction to that? How did you deal with it?
Well, there's different claims there, right? Like I thought that I had personal experiences with the Holy Spirit. I thought that was a thing. And I think I was able to later just kind of figure that out as, no, that's just your brain getting excited or getting into weird states about stuff. And I can achieve very similar things going to a concert or a story I've told a few times on this show. One time meditating with some Hare Krishna Hindus, like, was very enlightening for me in the sense of, oh wow, this bullshit is worldwide. It's not just in my hometown, right? So it's like, look, like, yeah, there's naturalist explanations for those kinds of personal experiences, and personal experiences were like a cornerstone of my personal belief. I didn't really understand or fully know a lot of apologetics, honestly, until I was becoming an atheist and really studying the Christian arguments and realizing, oh, if this is the best that Christianity has, I don't think I can believe this, right? So that's what it was for me. Yeah.
To face that, and that's not something that everybody's capable or prepared to deal with, and so that can make it very, very challenging.
I appreciate you telling me that, Scott. You know, I'm not going to lie and say it was easy, because it was difficult. But it did get easier over time. And again, now that I'm older, more firm in my experiences, and more, I have a better understanding of myself. Because again, this was happening when I was a very young man. Started the questioning at 19 and 20, right? Like I have been able to find a place where I'm at now, not only where I'm happy with myself, but also to be much more confident in my understanding of things. I mean, like, you don't know how ignorant you are until you get to the other side, right?
Right.
And I was ignorant, but you know, I'm glad that I can be an advocate for something that I truly think is right, and I don't have any doubts on. I don't have I don't stay awake at night thinking maybe the Christian God is real. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't nag me. I'll be honest. It doesn't
keep you up. Doesn't
keep
you up?
me up. You know, but like, you know, what did was thinking maybe he wasn't. Right. That was the stuff that really scared the hell out of me. It scared the hell in me, actually. You know, to be blunt.
Well, that's usually the last thing to go, right? The fear of hell. And so was your church, were they big on the hell concept there?
You know, I went to different kinds of churches growing up, but I definitely, I told this before too, like the time when I finally admitted out loud I was an atheist, that week I had more than one nightmare about how I was about to die, and that I could, you know, repent and have God save me, or else I was going to go to hell. And that, I think, spoke to something, a deep-seated fear within me. You know, there is a fear of death that is sort of mitigated when you have a Christian belief, that Christianity, you know, serves to that end. And so I did have to lose that, and that's honestly why still a lot of people still believe it. I think they're afraid of that. It's not a polite thing to say, and it's not exactly intellectual, but we're not exactly intellectual animals all the time.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I teach math for 25 years. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Right, Scott. But we have some more questions I think we should get to before we do that, though. I want to again announce next week, if you want to come to those auditions, not tomorrow, but next Saturday, you should definitely do that for crew or hosts. And if you're in Austin anyway, you should check out our shows, because we're going to be doing Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience live in the studio the next day. And I am going to be hosting both. I'm going to be on Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience that day, hosting Talk Heathen with Carl Griffin and with Johnny on Atheist Experience. So come hang out with me, at least, if you want to do that. And I mentioned this before as well, but we're not doing any more Truth Wanted live shows in studio for the foreseeable future. We hope to be doing some more of that again, but we're not doing it right now. So just Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience in the studio for right now. So one other thing, you can email the show truth@atheist-community.org or reach out on TV at atheist-community.org. And of course, see what's going on our website on atheist-community.org. Last thing, and then we're going to keep going to questions here. There is a Facebook group and it's run by fans for fans. So you can check that out if you go to tiny.cc/FBTWG to interact with other fans and talk about the show. So that's all I got for the announcements. Okay, we're gonna go back to some of these questions here, and man, there's so many good ones. We're spending a lot of time on our answers here, and I feel bad because a lot of people asked some really great ones, but I have to answer this one. Okay,
right.
I have to do this one. This is from Brian. It's either Brian Arrow or Brian Eero, and Brian asks, "What's your take on the so-called UFOs the U.S. has shot down in the last week, really 2 weeks?" Okay, let me tell you guys something. Okay, let me tell you guys something. I have been following this story very, very closely because I knew somebody was going to ask this question, if not on the regular call and then right now. Okay, I knew somebody was going to ask me. Well, I went hiking last Saturday and I was in Bastrop, Texas, trying to just enjoy nature, and I kept looking at my phone because I wanted to know what's up with the Alaskan UFO thing. Do we know what it is yet? Is it from China? What's going on? Turns out apparently these last 3 UFOs that we have shot down, non-related to the Chinese balloon, are not from China, according to the Biden administration. But they didn't say what exactly they were. Maybe they're balloons, maybe they're meteorological equipment. My understanding is that NORAD, since the Chinese balloon stuff has changed some of the ways that they do their radar technology in order to make it more sensitive, and when that happens, that also means that they can get more false hits for stuff. So this may be a result of that policy change, or this may just all be a psyop. I don't know. Or maybe it's aliens. A lot of people think it's aliens. I don't think it's aliens, though. I'm going to be real with you. I think if aliens are here, this wouldn't be the first time, and they wouldn't get shot down so easily by NORAD. I think that they'd find some other ways of doing stuff.
Want you to think.
I guess that's what they think. I guess that's what they want me to think. But yeah, I think it is crazy. I think the U.S. is playing 4D chess with China right now. To borrow a phrase, and we'll never truly know what's going on with the defense operations in the U.S. because they are obfuscated deliberately for a reason. But do I think it's aliens? Probably not. They might just be civilian aircraft that just got shot down and they don't want to admit it. I fully believe that's possible too.
When I was birds, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time we're living in, Scott. Very interesting time. Did you have thoughts on the recent UFO phenomenon?
Not a whole lot, other than to say I'm comfortable with the U in the UFO. I'm comfortable with with it being unidentified. If they, if they're able to identify it or willing, I understand that the government is not obliged to tell everything that it knows. I mean, there are such things as state secrets and so forth, and so it's not that I'm blindly trusting the government. It's that I know enough about it to feel comfortable with not knowing the rest of it. I guess.
Yeah,
that's it.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, definitely makes sense. I'm looking at some of the other questions here that we can take a look at. And am I going to volunteer myself for a hard one here, Scott? Because I kind of want to, only because
all right, let's do it.
This is a really tough one.
Okay.
And I know exactly why this question is being asked. Okay. So this is from David Scanlon, and this is saying, my question is, if an organization produces a product that is enjoyable, not necessarily useful, but is known to support movements that is disagreeable to your values financially, if you're able to use the product without supporting the organization, should you? Now, Scott, I don't know if you know what this is referring to, but recently a Harry Potter game has come out. And J.K. Rowling has been known for making some transphobic statements, right? And so people have been saying, well, this game should be boycotted because it's in support of somebody who is not in alignment with the trans community. It gets a little bit more complicated, of course, because J.K. Rowling's a billionaire. Her legacy is going to be, changed by this game. But like, do you support is this a slight to the trans community if you're purchasing this game? There's some trans people that say it doesn't matter. There's a lot saying it does matter. My response to this issue is, look, I am a vegan, guys. I've been a vegan for the past 2 years. I understand consumer boycotts. Okay. I've been trying to stop buying animal products because I don't want to support them, even though meat and other kinds of food gives me enjoyment. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I enjoy the taste of meat. I didn't give it up because I stopped liking it. I did it because it goes against my values. So you still eat bacon though, of course, right? Of course not. No, I don't. Surprisingly, I'm impressed. That's a commitment that you've made. At least I try not to. Wow. That's impressive. but the thing is, right? If anybody who wants to put their money where their mouth is in saying like, look, I don't want to support this, I'm all for that. I think that's great. And I support people who want to do that and make this a signal, right? Because again, me not supporting animal products, that is a drop in the bucket of the industry, but it's about more than that. It's about being consistent with your values. So I understand if this is somebody's way in first of all, I wasn't planning on buying this game anyway. I'm not super into Harry Potter. And it's just not really my thing, but it's like, yeah, I understand people who want to be able to, who are like, look, this is how you show solidarity with the community, is by standing with them, even for stuff. I just think it's very funny that people are like, oh no, we have to play this video game. And it's just like, man, I've been abstaining from like food, which is like way more necessary than video games. But yeah, it's been in the discourse for the last few weeks. And it's a very hot button issue, but that's my thoughts on it, Scott. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, like anything else, there's going to be a spectrum, right? And so you're balancing your desires and your wants for bacon versus your principles, right? And so there's a balance. And I think it doesn't have to be necessarily black and white, although in some cases it does have to be black and white. I mean, if you're buying something that is, for example, if you're buying a product and then they're using the money to buy slaves or something like that, and that's clearly on one side of the fence there. And then there's at the other side, maybe going to like Chick-fil-A, for example. I don't go to Chick-fil-A because I don't believe some of the some of the approaches but I don't give other people crap for going to Chick-fil-A, that kind of so there's a spectrum there. I actually experienced the same kind of thing 2 years ago. I'm a science fiction fan, and I used to just love Orson Scott Card. And I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a science fiction writer. He has several famous series, and I thought he was my favorite author. And then it came out that I believe he's a Mormon, and he had very strong anti-LGBT stances, and he even would speak out. And so I decided, I had a kind of a awkward feeling, buying his next, because it used to be as soon as he came out with another book, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
And I decided, okay, I'm not gonna buy any of his stuff anymore. And it was hard at first because I really enjoyed it. And every time he would come out with a new book, I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna. And so I don't regret doing that, but I can certainly understand the difficulty. I mean, whether or not to buy somebody's book is one thing, but the promotion of those beliefs, and so you have to balance it. Is this really just for me, or how much of my money is going to be going towards this? I mean, it's like I said, there are some cut and dry cases and there's some kind of hazy cases. We all have to find our balance between satisfying our wants and our needs versus living up to our principles. And so, you know, it's going to be different for each of us. And, you know, I admire people like yourself who are able to make that. I mean, that's a big thing, a big change that you made there. How long had you been thinking about being a vegan?
Oh, before I did it, well, I just started thinking about it in 2019. I didn't start until 2020. You know, like recently, like you know, I haven't been, and I'm not totally consistent in this. I want to be absolutely clear. Like, there's been times where I've consumed animal products, where I've bought things with animal products, and like that, I don't like that I've done that, but I have. And sometimes it's to make social situations less awkward. Sometimes it's because I'm just having a really bad craving for something, and I just want it, and I've broken that rule. There was times where I went like a whole 6 months without doing it, and there are times where I hadn't gone a week without it. But like, even in my hypocrisy, that doesn't necessarily mean that like my values aren't there, and that what I think is right still isn't right. Like, you can murder somebody and still think murder is wrong, right? Like that's weird. But like, you know, the problem is, of course, there's animal products everywhere, so I can't. It's a really hard thing to avoid. But I still, in principle, want to try to avoid it. And it's like, it's one thing to avoid a Chick-fil-A restaurant, right? Which I think, like, yeah, like they're even supportive of like homophobic stuff. So like, okay, that's simple to do. It's another thing to avoid chicken altogether. It's a bit harder. So, you know, it's something you gotta do. I mean, this is something where it's like, okay, yeah, this is a video game. Yeah, sure. I wasn't gonna get it anyway. It's not even an issue for me. Like, I'm just, you know, but it's the folks that are like, oh no, it's just like, this is it. This is the end of the line. You know, we have to, I just really want to get this. It's like, there's a million games out there. I don't know, dude. Like, if this is just going to be a problem. Now this also goes into, were the developers transphobic because they have this trans character in the game? But some people say, that this is a great representation of trans people, that because their name is Sorona, and it's and this is like a secret dig. Like, it, you know, they're like, there's like some weird complexities to that. So I don't know. Again, I'm going to avoid it because I really can't. It's really not that hard for me. And if that makes the trans community and my trans friends feel better knowing that I'm going to avoid it, absolutely. I care about the people in my life more in that sense. So, and animal products, that's also easier for me too, because it's like, yeah, that's just not going to be good in any form of me buying animal products. But that's different, right?
But you don't hold it, or I don't know, do you? I mean, would you hold it against somebody else?
See, that's tough.
If they chose not to.
Because like, man, how difficult is this, right? Like
I've opened a Pandora's box here.
This is why I almost didn't want to talk about this. Because like, how do I feel about this? Honestly, like, do I want to condemn other people for purchasing the game? There's definitely people who are purchasing this game in spite of the trans community, right? Like, and that should definitely be condemned. There's people that are buying this game that don't even know about this controversy, though, and I wonder if they would buy this game and they figure out that this is wrong, or that this is offensive to people in a way. Would that change their minds about the issue? Like, I don't know. I haven't really seen that happen. I'm just so terminally online that I just see the discourse all the time. Like, would I hold it against someone? I think if they were doing it maliciously, yeah. And if they don't understand what this means to people, yeah. But I've really tried to think hard about this, and I want to make sure that I communicate a position clearly that yes, I'm totally in support, like, obviously, of the trans community, LGBT community in general. And like, to me, it seems like the broadest voices have said, yes, this is going to be harmful. So like, I'm personally eschewing myself from doing that. And I think I would generally encourage other people to do it too, and say, hey, listen to your trans brothers and sisters here who are saying that it would mean a lot to them if you did this. And that's what matters to me, you know? So yeah, I guess I would. I guess I would say, hey, it's not a good idea, you know?
But look, I mean, look at the way you said it, though. You would engage in some kind of reasonable, rational discussion, right?
You can't just tell people.
You're not going to curse somebody. You're not going to say, you know, I hate you because you believe something different, or is that something you would jump to, or would you try to? I mean, because we have to it's important, I think, for us to as individuals to live up to our principles, to put our money where our mouth is, basically. But I think but on the other hand, I think we also have to cut ourselves a little slack sometimes too. And so then but we have to decide how much slack is acceptable and when is the slack acceptable. Like you were saying, you have, meat once in a while, and that doesn't undo your principles, and it doesn't undo everything that that you were doing otherwise. It doesn't undo the 364 days out of the year that you stuck to your guns. And so I think depending on the imminence and on the importance of the topic, of the issue, I think that can affect where that needle, where that threshold is, what is acceptable and what's not.
In general, I agree with you. The thing is with this is a luxury product. You know what I mean? This is a video game.
Okay.
Nobody needs a video. You don't need a video game. You do not. You just don't.
But like you said, there's going to be lots of people there's going to be, 9-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids that don't even know the discussion that's going on.
No. I'm not going to be like, oh, this 9-year-old is terrible. Like if you don't know, you just don't know, right? But if you do know, that's different. I think there's something to be said there. I don't know. Like I'm still going to continue to listen to the voices of the trans community around me,
for sure,
and see what they think, because ultimately I think their interests are what's most pertinent here. And I've made this decision for myself. And I would encourage it to other people. But if you're talking about would I jump down someone's throat versus explain it? Well, it's like, it is more work to explain it. I mean, I guess if that's going to help them, if it's help make my case, then sure. Yeah. I guess I would. Right. For some people, they're just going to be malicious about it all the time though. Right.
Right.
So I don't know. But it's God, I don't know. I want to be able to support. I just want to be able to support the trans community the best way I can. And it's like, I feel like this is this has been such a crazy issue. People have such divergent takes on this. And it's quite sad. I don't know. I wish there was more unity. I wish there was more ways we could help a population that has been severely targeted recently. And
well, I think in those cases, then that makes it all the more important to convey to the people that are maliciously buying this product or that are ignorant of the situation. I think if there is such an impact, and I think clearly there is some impact. I mean, we have a community of people that have been marginalized forever, basically, and can't often get a microphone or get a venue to express them, to express who they are as people and their human experience. And so I think it's important in those situations, though, that we try to bridge, that we try to communicate. We talk to that person who's like, I don't care what, J.K. Rowling says, I'm going to buy it anyway, explain, okay, well, the money's going to support this, or to explain the harm, to point out the damage that's so easily missed or worse, ignored, so if you bring it up, if you point it out, you're saying, look what you're doing, it's harmful. That person might want to just turn away, but if you keep bringing it up, then it forces you can bust through that cognitive dissonance, and it is possible to overcome that. But I think but it shows the importance of communication and understanding, and that and being able to recognize that there are other human beings that are being affected, and that they might have experience that's different from ours.
Yeah. Like I think what confuses people about this one is the material harm, right? Because if you donate directly to, I don't know, an organization that is against trans people more deliberately, or some sort of super PAC or something, you can see the harm a lot more. I think this video game sort of obfuscates what the harm is. And the harm here is purely an ideological one. It's purely a social phenomenon, I think, because again, J.K. Rowling's a billionaire, literally a billionaire. Like she's gonna keep doing her transphobe stuff, whether this game was successful or not. like that wasn't going to deter her personally.
Yeah, but
what
how many
this,
how many young minds does she have an access to?
Sure.
How many young minds are there?
Well, the point I'm making here, right? This is about social signaling. This is about like letting other people know, like that you support them, right? Like to me, I think that is important. Like again, I want my trans friends to know that they are safe and that I support them, and that like if this is something that they don't want because of the the whole situation. I mean, again, people are buying a wizard game to be transphobic, like deliberately.
Right,
like that's
right.
that's just crazy. We're
Like,
just living
as a
weird
badge,
times.
proudly displayed on their jacket to their friend, on
Yeah,
their white
yeah,
cloak
it's
to
just-
their friends.
Yeah. So like again, like if you're knowledgeable about it, I think you can make a conscientious decision to reject this. But like it is important to give context. It is important to explain, because I think if you just point out, oh, you should, if you buy this, you're transphobic, and then you don't explain further, that does confuse some people because they don't understand what is the material harm there. I can do that emotional labor again because I'm not trans, right? So like I
Right.
can help with that. I don't think it's up to trans people to explain every single time why something is transphobic. They have to do that all the time anyways.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
In fact, I think the onus is on the rest of us to make
Yeah.
an effort to understand,
Yeah.
to reach out and to understand that experience.
I agree. And we got a super chat here. Thank you, folks. We got 2 super chats tonight. I hope we get some more in the future. Last call for super chats. If you want to try to get it right now as we are wrapping up the end of the show, I will get it to you. But here's a super chat from Open Emphatic Virtue, which this was another point that I didn't even get to, which was the wizard game is about putting down the Goblin Rebellion, which, considering the Jewish stereotype roots, is more anti-Semitism. Just say no, period. Yeah, like this is a separate controversy, which is that like the goblins depicted in the Harry Potter universe are also based on anti-Semitic stereotypes. Again, I'm not a Harry Potter person. That like I don't like know the extent of it, but like if what people are saying is true about it, then like yeah, that's just the reason. I know J.K. Rowling has like weird naming schemes for her characters, like naming a black person with like the word chains in their name or something like that. Like it's just like weird little things. I don't know. J.K. Rowling is an enigma to me. I don't understand why she does the thing she does, but that's with a lot of people, right? So anyway, that's I decided to go there. I went to that topic. I hope my position is defensible, and I hope I make sense. Hopefully people who are on the other side of that issue can understand why what having a position like mine means. And again, I'm used to boycotting stuff. I've boycotted stuff harder than this. So this was, I was going to not buy this game anyway. So it's really
make a stand. Make a stand.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend and be like, oh man, it was really difficult for me. It wasn't. Okay. It wasn't. I wasn't going to buy it. But look,
but you're talking about it, and that's important too.
Some people were really looking forward to this, and they want to play the game. So I get that. But this to me is important, right? To talk about
for sure.
This. But anyway,
I agree completely.
I think that's going to be it for the show tonight, Scott. Thank you for. We didn't get to my deep dive, but that's okay. We got some great questions in. We'll do another deep dive.
Kudos
on some
to
other
the chat. Yeah.
Kudos to the chat. And props to everyone. Yeah, for giving your questions in tonight, doing the show a bit differently, Scott. If people want to see more of you, where can they find you at?
Well, like I said, lately I've been doing the nonprofits thing, so I think I'm scheduled. I have a date scheduled in March coming up here. Other than that, if they want to email me, I have a scott.dickie@atheist-community.org. I can be reached there, and that's pretty much it. Or you can take one of my classes.
Yeah. Wait, yeah, I guess so. Wait, what are your classes?
I teach
for the math.
Yeah, for math. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Calculus and stats mostly. So
yeah, okay, yeah.
Good things I didn't realize everybody needs. Everybody.
I didn't realize that was open to everybody. That's really funny. Very cool. So
Sure.
yeah, you need some math. go to Scott. Scott
Bring it.
will give it to you. So we are going to be doing the Discord after show. So come check us out.
Yeah,
Come
that's
talk
right.
to
I
us.
forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me.
You committed.
I did. I'm all
you
over
gotta
that.
do it now.
I'm all over it.
So yeah, go ahead and join us in the Discord for that. It's tiny.cc/ACD Discord. If you want to hang out, that's a fan run Discord that we will be answering some more questions directly from you guys. And last but never least, I have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing crew who helps make this show happen every single week. But we aren't doing a crew cam tonight because, again, our systems are very different from the usual. But you just know that they're out there in spirit, watching over this show and making sure
I can
things
sense
happen.
them. I can sense them out there doing their jobs, making sure that this happens.
Particularly our producer, Greg. Thank you so much, executive producer Greg Japes, for making things happen tonight, who was very frantic and very stressed and making sure that we were going to get a show tonight out. Damn it. So Greg, you are awesome. Thanks again. And I'm going to reiterate the question. So you don't forget, guys, please comment below. The question of the week is, in one sentence, what is your favorite questionable life hack? Comment in the video with the hashtag WWTT, and your comment might be read next week on next week's episode. So that is going to be it for tonight. I am Objectively Dan. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.